What happens when one of Hollywood's most outspoken stars comes face to face with daytime television's most polarizing voice? The result wasn't just tense, it was explosive. Before we unpack the moment that sent producers into panic mode and put security on edge, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And as you listen, ask yourself this. What really pushed Joy Behar to the breaking point? Stay with me because this confrontation took a turn no one expected that morning. The view didn't feel like a typical talk show set. There was a sharp, almost buzzing energy in the studio as Mark Wahlberg took his seat. He looked calm, composed, and confident. The same controlled presence audiences have seen for decades. But across from him sat Joy Behar, wearing that unmistakable expression longtime viewers recognize as a warning sign. Something was coming. And then it began. "So, Mark," Joy said, leaning forward with a smile that felt more strategic than friendly. "Let's talk about your new movie." "Another tough guy role, right?" She paused, then added, "Don't you ever get tired of playing the same character?" That question landed harder than expected. Mark adjusted in his chair, his jaw tightening just enough for the cameras to catch it. "Well, Joy," he replied evenly, "if you actually watch the films instead of skimming the headlines, you'd probably notice there's more range there than you're giving me credit for." The other hosts exchanged quick glances. This wasn't playful teasing anymore. "Oh, I watch plenty of movies," Joy shot back. "But let's be honest, you've built a career playing versions of yourself. The angry Boston guy with a hidden soft side. Different costumes, same performance." The studio fell silent. Even Whoopi shifted uncomfortably as she tried to step in. "Well, I think what Joy means is no." Mark cut in, his voice sharper now. "Let Joy finish." Then, with a pointed look, he added, "I'd really like to hear more of her expert analysis." That changed everything. Joy's eyebrows shot up. She wasn't used to guests pushing back, especially not this directly. "You don't need to be a critic to see patterns," she said. "For 20 years, it's been the same story. The troubled guy from the neighborhood who makes good. That's your whole brand." Mark leaned forward. "My brand?" he repeated. His voice rose slightly and cameras zoomed in instinctively. "You want to talk about branding, Joy? Let's talk about yours." You could feel the air leave the room. "How long have you been playing the same role?" he continued. "The cynical comedian who tears down successful people for applause. Cheap shots, easy laughs, and an audience that feels better when someone else gets knocked down." The studio went completely quiet. Behind the scenes, producers were frantically signaling for a break, but neither of them noticed. Joy's face flushed, her voice dropping low. "Excuse me, did you just call me bitter on my own show?" "I called it honestly," Mark replied. "When was the last time you built something instead of tearing someone else down?" Sonny tried to redirect the conversation. "Maybe we should change direction." "Too late." Joy stood up, her voice rising fast. "I've been in this business longer than you've been sober," she snapped. "I speak truth to power. I don't just flex for cameras." Mark stood as well, slowly, calmly, and suddenly the height difference made everything feel even more intense. "Speaking truth," he said. "Because from where I'm standing, this looks like someone clinging to relevance by manufacturing drama. Every camera captured it." Joy's hands trembled slightly. Anger, adrenaline, or both? The other host stayed frozen, unsure whether to intervene. "Lost relevance," Joy shot back, her voice cracking just a bit. "I've been doing this since before you needed scripts to sound intelligent. Don't lecture me about relevance." Mark took a step closer. Not aggressive, but commanding. "Then act like it," he said. "Engage your guests. Stop setting traps. Stop turning conversations into ambushes." Joy didn't hesitate. "You knew exactly what show you were walking into," she fired back. "If you can't handle real questions, maybe stick to action movies where the dialogue doesn't challenge you." The words hung in the air like a final blow. Mark's expression went completely still, cold, controlled, unmistakable to anyone who's seen his dramatic work. "Simple dialogue," he repeated quietly. And right there, with the studio holding its breath, the moment crossed a line no one could walk back from. So, was this just a clash of egos, or did it reveal something deeper about fame, relevance, and who really controls the conversation? Let me know what you think caused this showdown and whether either side went too far. "That's rich," Mark fired back, his voice sharp and unflinching, coming from someone whose biggest contribution to comedy was standing next to funnier people and hoping some of it rubbed off. The words landed like a bomb. Joy's mouth fell open. In more than 3 decades on television, no guest had ever spoken to her like that. Not on camera, not on her set. The audience went completely silent. The kind of silence that feels heavy, uncomfortable, impossible to ignore. You could almost hear people holding their breath. "How dare you?" Joy whispered, her voice trembling with rage. "How dare you come on my show and disrespect me like this?" "Your show," Mark shot back instantly. "Last time I checked, it's called The View, not the Joy Behar Hour. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe you've forgotten that other people are allowed to have opinions, too." Behind the scenes, everything unraveled. The control room erupted into chaos. Directors shouted into headsets, debating whether to cut to commercial or let the moment play out. The other hosts sat frozen, staring ahead like witnesses to a slow-motion crash they couldn't stop. Joy began pacing, her hands flying as her voice climbed so high that audio technicians visibly flinched. "You think you can come in here and humiliate me?" she shouted. "You think a few successful movies give you the right to attack me personally?" "Attack you?" Mark snapped back. "I'm responding to you attacking me. You started this the moment I sat down with that prepared little speech about my career. The difference is I'm not hiding behind comedy. I'm telling you exactly what I think. What you think doesn't matter." Joy shot back. "You're a guest on my show and you will show me respect." Mark let out a short laugh. Cold, humorless. "Respect is earned, Joy," he said. "And right now, you're not earning it. You're demanding it. Like someone who thinks they're untouchable." The tension in the room became almost physical. Security quietly moved closer to the set, unsure of what they were preparing for, but knowing something could happen. The audience remained silent, broken only by nervous coughs and the sound of shifting seats. Joy stopped pacing and turned to face Mark directly, her eyes blazing so intensely even the seasoned camera crew took notice. "Untouchable," she said. "You want to talk about untouchable? I've been on television since you were still getting arrested in Boston. Clears throat. I've survived network shakeups, co-host drama, and everything this industry throws at you. I don't need a reformed troublemaker telling me how to do my job." Mark's expression hardened even further. "There it is," he said quietly. "You can't argue with what I'm saying, so you go personal. You bring up my past because that's all you've got. Your past is part of who you are," Joy snapped. "You don't get to erase those years just because Hollywood cleaned up your image." "I'm not erasing anything," Mark replied. "I own my mistakes. I learned from them. That's the difference. You're still making the same ones you were making 20 years ago, going for cheap shots instead of real conversations." Whoopi finally tried to step in, her voice urgent. "Okay, let's know." Joy cut her off sharply, never breaking eye contact with Mark. "I want to hear more about how I'm doing my job wrong from someone who thinks acting tough makes him an expert on everything." Mark shook his head slowly, a bitter smile forming. "Acting tough," he said. "Joy, you have no idea what tough actually is. Tough isn't sitting behind a desk taking shots at people. Tough is owning your mistakes, learning from them, and trying to be better." The hosts were completely frozen now. Sunny sat with her mouth slightly open, clearly wanting to speak, but unable to find the words. Sarah looked like she was debating whether hiding under the table was a viable option. Joy's voice dropped again, low and dangerous. "Don't you dare lecture me about being better. I've spent my entire career speaking up for people without a voice. What have you done besides make action movies and pretend to be deep in interviews?" "Pretend to be deep?" Mark stepped closer, his voice rising. "I've put my money where my mouth is. I've created jobs. I've supported charities. I've helped kids in the neighborhood I came from." Then he paused just long enough to let the moment breathe. "What have you done?" he continued. "Besides, complain about people who are actually trying to make a difference." "Make a difference?" Joyce scoffed. "You make movies, Mark. You're not curing cancer. You're not saving the world. You're an entertainer who's gotten way too comfortable believing his own hype." By now, the audience was completely locked in. Some leaned forward like they were watching a heavyweight fight instead of a daytime talk show. Cameras cut rapidly between close-ups of both faces as the argument escalated, each second more intense than the last, and the question hung in the air. How much further could this go before someone finally pulled the plug? Mark let out a sharp, Humorless laugh. Believing my own hype, he said coldly. That's rich coming from someone who thinks being loud automatically makes them right. You don't want a conversation, Joy. You want submission. You want guests to sit here, nod along, and applaud while you unload your pre-written talking points. My prepared talking points. Joy snapped back. At least I do my homework. At least I come prepared instead of winging it and hoping charm carries me through. Charm, Mark repeated, disbelief flashing across his face. Is that really what you think this is about? This is about respect, Joy. Something you clearly don't understand. You think seniority gives you a free pass to treat people however you want. Joy was visibly shaking now. Whether it was fury or adrenaline, no one could tell. I treat people the way they deserve to be treated, she fired back. And right now, you're acting like an arrogant has-been who can't handle being challenged. The word hit hard. Mark's face drained of color before flushing red. For a split second, it looked like he might completely lose control. Then he spoke quietly, almost calmly, but every microphone caught it. A has-been, he repeated. Joy, I'm at the peak of my career. My last 3 films made more money than your entire network pulls in during a good quarter. He paused, letting the statement settle. But money isn't everything, is it? Because if it were, you'd be showing me a lot more respect. Joy's eyes flashed. Oh, now we're talking about money. She scoffed. How very Hollywood of you. Reducing worth to box office numbers because that's the only metric you understand. I'm not reducing anything. Mark shot back. I'm pointing out that someone experiencing real success might actually know what works, but your ego won't let you hear that. My ego? Joy's voice cracked slightly. You're the one who couldn't handle a simple question about your career without turning it into a personal attack. A simple question, Mark said firmly. You didn't ask a question. You delivered a prepared insult disguised as commentary, and the fact that you can't see the difference, that's the real problem. Whoopi tried again, desperation creeping into her voice. Maybe we should go to commercial. No, Joy and Mark said at the exact same time. The overlap would have been funny under any other circumstance. I want to finish this, Joy insisted, her voice rising. I want America to see exactly who Mark Wahlberg is when he doesn't get his way. Mark stared at her for a long moment. The anger slowly faded, replaced by something far more unsettling. Joy, he said calmly. Everyone can already see who you are. You're a bully who's gotten so comfortable in the seat that you've forgotten how to actually listen. A bully? Joy shrieked. Did you just call me a bully on my own show in front of my audience? Yes, Mark replied without hesitation. Because that's exactly what this is. You didn't invite me here for a conversation. You invited me to tear me down for entertainment. And when I didn't play along, you got angry because no one's supposed to fight back. He leaned forward slightly. Well, I'm fighting back. The studio went dead silent. No applause, no gasps, just the low hum of cameras and faint whispers from the production crew. Joy stood perfectly still, staring at him. When she finally spoke, her voice was eerily calm. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Mark met her gaze without blinking. Actually, he said, I think I do. The real question is, do you? The standoff felt endless, though it lasted only seconds. Joy's breathing was visible now, her chest rising and falling as she processed the moment. The other hosts looked shaken, like they were witnessing something that was never meant to happen on daytime television. Then Joy spoke again. Slower, colder, more calculated. You know what your problem is, Mark. You think reinventing yourself from street thug to movie star makes you better than everyone else. But I see right through the act. Mark's expression shifted. The anger faded, replaced by something harder to define. An act, he said quietly. There is no act, Joy. This is just me responding to someone who's been attacking me from the moment I sat down. And right there, with millions watching, the question wasn't who was winning the argument anymore. It was how far this confrontation was about to go. But if you want to talk about acts, Mark continued, his voice steady but cutting. Then let's talk about yours. My act? Joy snapped. Yeah, your act, he said. The angry truth teller, the fearless comedian who speaks truth to power. But here's the thing. Real truth tellers don't punch down. They don't use their platform to humiliate guests. And they don't hide behind comedy when they want to be cruel. That hit a nerve. Joy's face cycled through shock, disbelief, and then settled into pure rage. Cruel, she shot back. You want to talk about cruel? Cruel is coming onto someone's show and telling them they don't know how to do their job. Cruel is insulting someone's entire career in front of millions of people. I'm not insulting your career, Joy, Mark replied calmly. I'm pointing out that maybe you've lost what made you great in the first place. You used to be funny because you were smart. Now you're just mean, and you've convinced yourself it's the same thing. The words hung in the air like a dare. Joy's hands clenched into fists at her sides. For a split second, it looked like she might actually lunge. Mean, she said, barely containing herself. Now, let's talk about your anger issues. Let's talk about how you turned dysfunction into a career and somehow decided that makes you an expert on human nature. Mark didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. My anger issues, he said evenly. Joy, you've been screaming at me for 10 minutes. You're the one who can't have a conversation without turning it into a fight. Maybe you should look in the mirror before diagnosing anyone else. Don't you dare tell me to look in the mirror, Joy snapped. I know exactly who I am. I'm someone who calls out phonies when I see them. And that's exactly what you are. A phony who thinks he's changed. She leaned forward. The second someone challenges you, she continued, the real Mark Wahlberg comes out. Mark didn't flinch. This is the real Mark Wahlberg, he said. Someone who doesn't let people walk all over him just because they have a TV show. Someone who stands up for himself when he's being attacked. Joy laughed, but it was sharp, bitter, and deeply uncomfortable. Attacked, she scoffed. You think this is an attack? This is a conversation. This is what happens when someone asks you real questions instead of tossing you softballs about your latest movie. Real questions, Mark shot back. You didn't ask me a single real question. You made statements. You delivered prepared insults. You tried to embarrass me on national television. He paused. But here's the thing. I'm not embarrassed. That broke something. Joy's face went pale, then red, then pale again. I should be embarrassed, she stammered. You disrespect me on my own show in front of my audience, and I'm supposed to be embarrassed. Yes, Mark said firmly. Because everyone watching can see exactly what's happening. They can see who started this, who escalated it, who's acting like a professional, and who's acting like a child throwing a tantrum. Joy's mouth opened, closed, opened again. A child, she finally screamed. Did you just call me a child? Get out. Get out of my studio right now. Mark didn't move. Your studio, he said calmly. I thought we already established this isn't just your show. Get out, Joy yelled, her voice echoing through the set. Security, get this man out of here. The audience gasped. Several people raised their phones recording despite the rules. The